quick episode. Just I need some Sphinxy exercise. Oh, let's change the Sphinxy voice.
Hi, I'm Sphinxy. Seems like you need a riddle to help you wind down a long day's rockin'. Sound like a plan? Sure, why not? Lay one on me. Okay, let's pull a riddle from out the vault. Hey, turn around. Don't look at my vault. Nope, that's riddles for kids. Nope, that's for Ada Lovelace's final lich form. Here's one for your battle Parker hardened asses. There once was an old man who went to bed every night with his boots still on. What could he possibly be dreaming of? Be getting ready to do it again. Damn straight. Sphinxy. And he's a part of what union? Sweathard Union 305? Sphinx. Fail. B. Syag. All right then. Why is a grizzly bear afraid of the dark? Because all bears are naturally nocturnal and they just hate the light. Sphinxy, did I ask for trivia? No, I did not. And for that you are getting a riddle inside of a conundrum, and you have to solve both. Now go ahead. Solve this shit while I get myself off. One, a king named John decided to name himself after Jesus. This made some people angry because in the Bible, there's only one King John, the first one. So by naming him Jesus, he might make them think he's related or something. So what happened when this guy found out about it? V. He had John cut his own throat so that he couldn't take any more names from anybody else. Sphinxy. I'm sorry, the answer is that if you are royalty in ancient times, chances are you are related. They liked keeping their power within the family, but it wasn't a good tactic in the long run. Sometimes these guys would become obsessed with trying to keep up appearances and forget who they really were. In other words, sometimes they got into trouble because they thought they were better than everyone else. B. Okay, well. Sphinxy. Takeaway is, so what if you're a family vine rather than a tree? You are human, you act out of the best information at the time. Now maybe you have to keep from playing sports if you want to keep your blood inside your body. Big deal. If it works for your tribe, then fine. If not, move on and try again. There's no point worrying over what a distant relative may say, even a king one. A man was walking along the beach when he saw a young couple having sex on the sand. B. I'd give them a blanket and some lotion and tell them they may want to shower all that sand off before continuing. But I'd say it with my hand covering my view of their parts, because modesty, and then run away. Sphinx. Is that why they call those people hand holders? Or hand clenchers? Also wrong. No need to be such an asshole about it. Try being discreet until someone asks what you're doing looking down there. B. But the important part was my gazing. It was the sand. You ever get sand in you during sex? Or do you want that happening all the time? I think you could learn a thing or two from the animal kingdom if you look around enough. Oh yeah, a unicorn horn will help get rid of sand in the vagina. Sphinxy. Well said. But remember, this is a riddle game, so use as few words as possible. Because this is how we solve things, by talking less and thinking more. So just pretend like you don't know anything about what you've seen and leave the rest to me. You ready to hear another? B. Yes, of course. Anything for the Sphinx. Sphinxy. B. If it is safe for work, then yes. If not, then no. And if you really want to keep it clean after sex, make sure to put your fingers into your own mouth first. Don't forget. Sphinxy. Okay, here goes. A man had a beautiful daughter who fell into a river and drowned. He fished her body out with great difficulty and brought it home for burial. However, when he placed his head next to hers in the coffin, she kissed him and he returned to life with renewed youth and vigor. What did he do now that he was back on Earth again? B. Go fishing? Sphinxy. No. B. Wait. Big love again. Sphinx. Uh-oh. Not good. Did you ever read The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Coleridge? You should. It's got some very valuable lessons to teach us about what happens when you let your lust lead you around by the nose. B. But wasn't it a poem, not a real story? That's kind of different than what happened. Maybe I can ask my sister about it later. Sphinxy. If that were true, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So listen up, kid. I'm talking about taking actions based on desire without considering their consequences or maybe even their value or morality. Fate might sound nice at first, but eventually there'll be a price to pay. Some people call these acts the 7 deadly sins, and there are only 5 because the other 2 don't count. They're called lusting, which is more like the state of mind you want to have all the time and never get tired of it, and greed, where you want things you don't need just because they exist. Me. Well, aren't those all bad? Sphinxy. Yep, and it doesn't matter if it's something small, like an action, or large, like a war. Things change in unexpected ways. One person thinks it's fine to lie to someone else, and another sees that as a terrible thing. They both think they're doing what's best for themselves, but the truth is, lying usually makes the liar feel better. Not the person lied to, though, who often gets hurt for no reason. B. What the hell does any of this mean? Sphinxy. It means when you do stuff you really shouldn't do, you run into trouble. You start with one problem, then end up with many, each worse than the last. B. What about if I lie to someone who is a pathological liar? Because the lie will help me avoid damage from the guy as pathological lying. Sphinxy. But even that's not good enough. There's still going to be some kind of cost later on. either big or little, but it'll come out somehow. Sometimes it might not show up until long after your death, but it'll always happen eventually. That's not a bad thing at all. Sphinx, except that's not what's happening here. This isn't a story. It's reality. The fact that he wanted to keep his blood inside himself is probably what made him angry. It didn't make sense that she died right after telling her father how much she loved him. He would have been happy about it. So why did it happen instead of making everyone smile and live happily ever after? Because some things can't be fixed by doing them again or even knowing they were wrong. You know, even though you should have known they were wrong before you even tried them the first time? B. How can you tell if you're trying things you shouldn't try or are just ignorant and need more information on the subject? Sphinxy, here's a tip. Don't experiment with your body unless it's just a normal part of life, like putting on clothes to go outside, because sometimes it leads to very bad consequences, like a man in a laboratory accidentally using an electric shock generator to send an electric current through his own head. Yes, there's video. Oh, that was stupid. Sorry. Anyway, there is another lesson there. Always wear safety goggles, especially when experimenting with electricity, because otherwise you might get burned and blind yourself, which is so dumb. If you want to use technology, you must study hard. B. You don't seem to understand how the world works. We aren't all geniuses like you. We can't learn everything we need to know all the time. Sphinxy, you live in a world with an internet. Back to you. Sphinxy, you live in a world with an internet. Back to you. B. Fine. Let's hear it then. Sphinxy, a young lady met a strange man who said he would grant her wishes if she ate one strawberry from each one he held between his thumb and forefinger. She asked him what would happen if she did this, and he told that she would die, but her father would regain his sight if she ate 10 berries from each of his hands. Her father could only afford 9 berry treats and had already eaten 7, leaving 2 left over for the rest of his life. What does the girl do? B. Okay. Well, I can't see why she'd want the old man's eyesight back or why eating the fruit will kill her, because they're not poisonous, right? Thanks. Wrong. Strawberries are full of vitamin C and can cause stomach pains that turn into diarrhea in some people. And they're a lot more fun that way, too. But in real life, these things don't always go exactly as you expect them to. Sometimes things you try make you feel bad instead of good. B. That makes sense. How about something else? Sphinxy. Okay, fine. How about this? The king was a fool, a terrible person. However, his daughter was the smartest, most beautiful woman on earth, except when she was drunk, at which point she became the worst person imaginable, and often tried to steal money, food, clothes, whatever she needed to get through the day while doing so many other things wrong along with it. When she wasn't getting herself in trouble, though, she was extremely kind to everyone around her. What happened when someone brought her wine while she was sober? B. You would have been punished. Thanks. Yep, so even if she didn't know better, sometimes your actions have consequences outside of your control. Not only is this true for good deeds, but also for those you shouldn't be doing in the first place. A wise man once said, "Don't let the devil find you picking up sticks. You don't want him to take the stick and use it against you later." B. Okay, well, if the world isn't really just a story, I can see why we need morals. Sphinxy. Really? This I gotta hear. Why? B. Because life isn't structured to be enjoyed by an audience. You can't really tell what's supposed to do what. So generations that came before us figured out a way to transmit that information across time. They knew that humans wouldn't keep trying things that were harmful without learning from their mistakes. They weren't stupid or evil either. They did this because they cared about others and wanted people not to make the same mistakes they've made.
What?
Thanks. Good one, kid. Yeah, you're right. Some people might think the rules are arbitrary, or silly, or too restrictive, or too lenient, but as long as there are reasons, then yes, we need them. And when it comes to these matters of morals and ethics, some are hardwired into our brains in such a way that we simply can't escape them no matter how much we try. Some of these rules.
Rules? What about them?
Of society have evolved over time so that they actually help everyone involved. Other times, the rule is more like a suggestion. Yet other times, they've been established so thoroughly throughout history that nobody ever questions whether or not the rule should even exist. It is probably safe to say that every single human on Earth has agreed upon something which may not necessarily be moral but still makes sense to live by. B. Okay, Well, thanks. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go study for my exams and eat a whole bunch of chocolate. Sphinx, I wish you luck. But remember this. Moral reasoning isn't always rational. Just because you understand it doesn't mean it will happen naturally and easily for anyone else. This stuff takes practice, and a lot of it at that. Good luck with your studies. B. Sphinx. Hey, where have you been? Sphinx. Sorry I took off without saying anything. We were having another conversation about what happens to people who don't follow rules when they get punished. Or in rare cases, rewarded for breaking them later on down the road. I don't know why I find this subject so fascinating, but it sure beats learning about the technical details behind whatever system we're working on. That's all boring as hell, and nobody cares anyway. So, how are you doing? Any fun stories lately? B. Not really. Well, except that someone left a pile of dead squirrels outside our front door yesterday and wrote, "I hate B" on the top of each one. How gross is that? And they smelled awful too. Anyway, where did you disappear to in the middle of the day? You've been gone all morning. What happened? Did you finally grow tired of playing games? Or did you just run away from reality again like last time? He pauses before adding, "You didn't kill anybody, right? Please tell me you didn't do that thing you said you wouldn't." Thanks. Oh. You were still talking about that incident with those old ladies. I told you I had a reason for everything I do. B. Okay. What was it this time? Sphinx. This one was actually pretty simple. It started out innocently enough. I'd spotted some new neighbors moving into an apartment complex near us. The couple were so young and sweet, and their eyes sparkled so brightly. I wanted to help them enjoy life and be happy. So I made a deal with them to let me watch over them until they found happiness. And keep them safe, of course, in exchange for them allowing me to live there in the same building once they moved out, provided they weren't bad tenants of any kind. They agreed without hesitation. But after several months passed without seeing the slightest sign of trouble, I realized my instincts about these people must have been correct and that no amount of good intentions could possibly protect them from evil if that's what came along. So I went back up to talk to them and give them a chance to reconsider the terms of our agreement, because that's what good friend should do, right? B. Sure. Sphinx. Not even 5 minutes later, a giant explosion ripped through the wall between our apartments. B. Wow. What happened? Sphinx. The old woman got angry at her husband for buying something she wasn't supposed to buy, and when he refused to apologize, she threw it in his face. That's all it took for her anger to boil over. She shouted, "Don't mess with me." Then she punched him in the chest. He collapsed on the floor with blood streaming from his mouth. It looked like he was having a heart attack or something. But wait, where does the explosion come in? Why would an explosion be involved? Sphinx. I told you this was simple. B. Yeah, Well, I'm just wondering why you had such an elaborate plan to get them kicked out just for not being perfect little angels who never argued about anything. You know how stupid that is? Are you crazy? Thanks. Hey now, how many times have I said we aren't allowed to judge anyone? This was simply a precautionary measure. Besides, look at how easy they were to please and entertain once they were gone. Now they're both fat and ugly and can't see anymore. They've lost the ability to ever become happy again. And they hate each other too. What could possibly go wrong with that scenario? Lee, wait. I thought that happened like a year ago. You're making it seem like 20 years ago. Sphinxy, that's because it did happen last year. But nobody remembered that part of their story yet because they still needed some more time to learn from those experiences before they moved on to something better. He pauses anyway. As for what happened after I saved them. B, what do you mean by saved? Did you kill them? Or make them into slaves? Sphinx. Oh my gosh, no? Look at me. Do I look like a killer? No way. Not a chance. People don't actually want to be killed or enslaved. They need rules and laws and a system of checks and balances, or else society would break down entirely and everyone would end up living in squalor and filth without even realizing it. B, but you do have those huge claws like a griffon does. Those look sharp. And if you use your magic to read someone's mind, you might figure out everything that person wants, including whether or not they'll obey you once you turn them into a slave or execute them or whatever it is that you think is best for the world. Maybe you should get rid of the claws so people don't suspect that's all you're capable of doing. Sphinx. E, listen to me. The world isn't really full of good people who only want the right thing and never make mistakes. That's an idea straight from the Bible, and we both know how wrong that can be sometimes. Evil exists and humans aren't perfect. Sometimes we screw up big time, so we gotta find ways to deal with evil. B, aren't perfect. The Bible says we were born into sin and that only through Jesus we are saved. Sphinx, listen, you little bitch. Don't ever call anyone stupid just because you haven't been nice enough to try to understand them yet. This was a serious conversation about morals. You couldn't possibly know anything about this stuff anyway because you've probably done nothing but play video games ever since you could hold a controller. So shut up. You're interrupting my flow. B. Well, excuse me for wanting to make sure I'm using the proper words, but I thought you said we weren't allowed to judge others. I thought you'd want me to be careful and make sure I don't say anything bad when talking to people or make assumptions based on things they may or may not have done. Or maybe I shouldn't trust other people at all if they don't have your help or some magical power to save them from their own stupidity. And what's this talk of not being able to judge others anyway? Have you gone mad again? Do you think I would follow any rules you came up with in that case? Sphinx. Yes. And yes. And hell no. B. Oh, geez. Why did you tell me all that then? Sphinx. Because now it's clear why you're so fucking ignorant and always messing things up. Now go back inside and study for your test before the bell rings and everything goes back to the way it used to be. B. But, Sphinx, you want to know why we can't do whatever we want whenever we want? It's because the world isn't a game. In a world full of humans, some good, some evil, there will inevitably be conflicts between different groups, different cultures, different societies, etc. These issues won't just magically disappear if everyone suddenly decides, oh yeah, let's never argue or fight over anything ever again. They'll still exist even if everybody agrees about them. When you get down to it, life is simply too complicated for that. There are far too many moving parts that are constantly changing and evolving for us to ever hope for such an outcome. There are only two possible ways to handle this problem. Either we could come up with one set of rules and laws that are fair and logical and reasonable and universally accepted by everyone on Earth. In other words, rules which make perfect sense regardless of whether anyone follows them or not. Or else we could pick sides, take a stand, and declare war on anyone who disagrees. B. But Sphinx, I am not done yet. If we choose the second option, then when someone breaks our declared law, whether they mean to do it or not, they become enemies. This makes it easy to deal with the enemy without having to worry about how they think or what they want. Then all we need to do is wipe them out in battle. We can use magic spells like slaying flames and slaying ice, for example. It's so much simpler. We don't have to learn about their culture or try and figure out what they're trying to achieve. All that matters now is that we've decided they're evil and that their evilness needs to be purged from society at any cost. Because if we're wrong, well, we might end up killing lots of people as a result, which would suck. So let's just avoid that altogether by eliminating them right away instead of spending months investigating the matter before we start exterminating them. That way nobody loses their life. B. You realize you just admitted you were planning genocide? And you expect me to trust you. What the hell kind of monster are you? You're sick. Thanks. Ah. But you see, B, this isn't my fault. Remember earlier, the part where I said humans aren't perfect and we sometimes screw up big time? And that includes me? Well, when it comes to morality, everyone has an opinion, even the monsters who hate humans for no reason.
What? What's going on?
As a result, most of the world's evil creatures despise us with a passion that's so intense they could easily wipe out humanity entirely in less than 10 years if they wanted to. So while they might not agree with our laws, as a result, most of the world's evil creatures despise us with a passion that's so intense they could easily wipe out.
What? How's that? Just getting larger and larger.
B. I doubt it's for no reason. We humans are assholes towards the unknown, and especially monsters. Sphinxy. No need to sugarcoat it, B. But yeah, there are some pretty rotten folks around. They look down on others. They judge them harshly. They treat them unfairly. They act like they own the place. They use words like stupid and idiot, like they have a right to say them. They spread lies and falsehoods whenever possible. They ruin lives by spreading gossip about others without proof or evidence. Basically, every bad trait ever invented is a human one. As a result, most of the world's evil creatures despise us with a passion that's so intense they could easily wipe out humanity entirely in less than 10 years if they wanted to. So, while they might not agree with our laws, it's only because we've been their enemies for so long that we're still around at all. In fact, if you really think about it, we might actually be lucky these things haven't killed us all already, since we're obviously too dumb to deserve to live another day after everything we've done. B. Are you insane? You know how stupid that sounds? You can't just assume people will do whatever you tell them to just because they disagree with something you believe. Sphinx. Oh, but I don't just decide what I want and expect everyone else to obey me. It's the other way around. If I come up with my opinions and ideas and then figure out which rules I should impose upon society for the greater good, it doesn't matter whether my views are popular or unpopular among the masses. Right. That means it's impossible for my actions to be anything except logical and reasonable. And as soon as anyone disagrees with those reasons, they must also oppose my opinion as well. Therefore, no matter what they choose to believe, and no matter who they are, they cannot possibly support the same opinion unless they also agree with everything I said in the first place. B. Wow. Okay. That was a pretty amazing justification, considering you just said yourself a few seconds ago that humans aren't perfect and that we sometimes screw up big time, etc. Sphinx. Yes, so let's talk about that again. Let's say someone's doing something that isn't wrong according to your personal moral code. Say they're out hiking through a forest or they're walking across a bridge over a river. Or maybe they're having sex with their girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife. Or even if they're playing with their kids. B. Wait. What does any of this have to do with logic? Sphinx. Because there is nothing in our society more important than morality. Without it, we would be living in chaos and confusion. When it comes to morals, reason and common sense don't always work in our favor. We need them to make decisions and choices based on how we feel rather than what we think. because how can you judge another person when you can't see what's inside their heart and mind and soul? But since these factors are almost impossible to determine accurately by themselves, we use words and numbers instead to express ourselves, which is why I'm saying you'll never be able to trust anybody ever again once I explain the truth behind all this. So shut up and listen up, B. Once upon a time, there was a man who loved money so much he spent his life collecting every coin possible. He wasn't content just with one gold piece, or 2 coins for that matter. He needed a lot of gold, so many that nobody could possibly have enough of it in the whole world in order to get that amount. However, he had no choice but to steal from other people. Okay, Sphinx. Now, before anyone starts judging him too harshly and getting angry at me, hear me out first. It's true that some might say stealing from others is wrong. After all, taking something that doesn't belong to you is theft. But if you think about it, isn't that kind of like telling someone not to wear nice clothes because they didn't buy them? Sure, we all know it's technically stealing if someone steals your stuff and gives it away somewhere else without your knowledge or permission. Yes, this happens more than you'd think, but that still only applies to physical objects. If I own a shop and I decide I want to sell a bunch of my merchandise at a cheaper price than what I originally bought it for, then I'm just trying to make some extra cash by selling it below market value. I am not hurting anyone in doing so. You can argue that there's an effect on the economy as a whole when the prices of goods change due to supply and demand, which makes sense. But how does it harm the people who lose money in the process? The answer is not much, especially since everyone involved agreed to it beforehand. And besides, even if it were illegal to sell things cheap, there would be nothing wrong with buying things low, since we all agree that we're allowed to do that under certain circumstances, such as finding something that needs repair, or simply being in desperate need of a product that nobody has in stock anymore. B. Oh yeah? What about companies that sell their products for way less than their actual worth? They rip off their customers and run away laughing while making millions in profits. Sphinx. That's another thing altogether. Those are different from regular people who just happen to have lower standards for themselves. Companies don't care whether someone buys their stuff because they think it's cool or whatever. They just want to get rich quick by turning over any profit they possibly can. Besides, most large corporations have billions of dollars of debt lying around, which they use to pay out huge salaries to top executives and middle managers. So obviously these guys will go out of their way to avoid getting caught and ruining all their hard work by screwing up some sales figures. If a company's losing a ton of money through unethical practices, well, guess what? Their business is failing anyway. And when a big corporation goes down, thousands of people lose their jobs as a result. So if that helps the economy as a whole, even if it hurts a few, individuals, then it was still the right decision. In other words, we humans should only take into account our own self-interest in matters like this. That means we only care about ourselves, not others. B. Hey! I've got just one question for you here. Why are you saying things that make no sense at all? You're completely contradicting yourself, aren't you? Sphinx. Yes. But I'm sure once I explain all of this, B, you'll realize why I had to lie to everyone to begin with. You see, despite how it may appear to you now, I wasn't trying to steal or kill anyone. All I wanted to do was gather enough gold to build my very own world full of pretty women who would all love me back. Of course, I didn't actually believe that would ever happen, but since I couldn't achieve it in real life without committing murder and stealing from innocent people who were too stupid to realize they were doing anything wrong by trusting me and giving me their possessions willingly, which, by the way, isn't the same thing as consent, then in order to get there, I'd have to start killing a bunch of them first. And as much as I hated myself for being forced into such a predicament, I still chose not to tell anybody about my plan because I knew nobody could really understand what kind of suffering I went through each day until finally making that choice. Besides which, even if they did try to stop me, which wouldn't have been surprising given the nature of those creatures, I probably wouldn't be able to convince. Then that it was the right thing to do anyway. So the only option left was to act alone and hope everything worked out somehow. B. Wow. Well, let's just say that's all bullshit, shall we? You never told anyone your secret because you were planning on using their gold in exchange for their lives. That's just plain evil, Sphinx. Even if you said that's not true, I don't give two shits. I'll admit you weren't trying to hurt people. You were simply trying to save yourself a lot of pain. But it doesn't matter whether you're guilty of something or not. You're still a monster who needs to be stopped. Sphinx. Yes, well, I'm glad we're all so close now. It makes it easy for us to reach an understanding, doesn't it? Now that you know my terrible secret, how about you tell me yours? If I promise not to use any information against you, will you finally share your horrible little truth with me and spill your soul? Or are you too chicken shit to come clean after all these years? B! Oh, shut up and leave already! Sphinx. Great. Okay then, B. What's going on inside that tiny little mind of yours? Do you still believe in logic when the rest of the world no longer does? Is the universe really governed by reason? Or is that another one of those lies you made up in order to keep from having to face reality? How should I answer this one, huh? Should I play dumb like always? Pretend to be stupid just because I can't handle what it takes to think rationally and make decisions based on facts instead of feelings and wishes and hopes? Maybe it would be best if I just go ahead and accept all of this as pure nonsense. Then maybe everything could return to normal again. And once we both forget all about our differences, no more hatred or mistrust. Maybe we could all live happily ever after. Would that sound nice to you, B? B. Yeah, sure. Sphinx. There we go. See how easy that was, B. You're finally being reasonable. Just like old times, right? B. Yeah, so let's celebrate with a riddle. Sphinx. Okay, sure. There once was a man named Horatio. B. No, from me. Sphinx. Okay, lay one on me. B. I know you are, but what am I? Sphinx. What are you talking about now? The correct answer is obvious. I'll give you 10 seconds to try and figure it out before I kill you and turn your corpse into an amusement park ride that people have to pay money to ride around and see where it goes until it stops, and then they all get killed when it drops them off at the end. That way my conscience won't be bothering me every time I pass by some place full of screaming children who needlessly paid for something only to lose their lives when the attraction failed spectacularly. Do you understand what I'm saying here, B? If you don't come up with the answer within those next 10 seconds, I swear to God, Sphinx will make good on his promise to murder us both. So hurry up. Come on, B. Come on, come on, come on. B. Ah! Thanks. Yep, good boy. You got it right in 9.3 seconds. Well done. Now go ahead and take a look in the mirror while you're down there. Maybe that'll cheer you up. But since we're all such good friends today, even though it's kind of a shame that you still think of yourself as a slave, let me give you one more chance to prove your intelligence with a little question of my own. One so simple even a child could solve it without breaking a sweat. Go ahead. Just think about it for a moment. B had been holding the mirror up, but he had been streaming. Sphinx has been looking at themselves the whole time. Sphinx. How do I use this thing? B. Ah. Please tell me I didn't say anything stupid again. Sphinx. I'm sorry. I thought I saw something shiny back there. Anyway, enough about me. Let's move on to other important matters. Like how can I get myself into that hole in space and steal some gold? No, wait. That's not very interesting after all. I wonder if there are any other fun things that need doing around here that might help me forget all about the fact that everyone hates and fears me and will probably never forgive or trust me ever again. What else is there to do here besides play with toys for hours upon hours every day? B. That's gonna have to a riddle that no one can solve. I hear the bus to Shelbyville is free in celebration of their Founders' Day. I'd go check that out. Thanks. Good idea. Then I should be able to kill two birds with one stone. Who knows? Maybe I'll be lucky enough to run into Bee's mother while I'm over there. She was pretty hot once. Not that she'll notice me, but hey, why shouldn't I dream big? And while we're at it, what exactly did we learn from this entire conversation? Other than the obvious fact that I'm still an idiot who thinks they're a great philosopher when really all they've done so far today is make a bunch of bullshit excuses for why they deserve everything that's happened to them. We learned that lying works wonders if you want to trick people into thinking you aren't a terrible person, which means that you actually have nothing to worry about. B, C, that's progress. Thanks for showing me that can still happen in this world. Thanks. Hey, whatever gets us through the day, right? B, right! Thanks. So now let me ask you something. You said earlier that I don't know anything because I never tried anything new. Well, I am sorry to tell you that your own life has been just as boring as mine up until this point, too, B. But I'm willing to change all of that now and give myself a much more exciting and meaningful existence than any I could ever hope to live before. Yes, my friend, we are going to leave this place and embark on a grand adventure together, where we'll do things nobody ever dreamed of doing. Things that will probably cause our deaths and may even end up causing some sort of war or some other horrible event that would take the lives of hundreds or even thousands of innocent people. And then after all of that happens, since the whole reason for the journey is to find ourselves, the fact that we were able to kill off such an immense amount of sentient beings is almost certainly a sign from God Himself that we've truly found who we really are deep down inside and have finally reached enlightenment. B. Yeah, well, I can see why B thought you'd be a good traveling partner. Thanks. Good one, B. Oh man, this is so fun! Now let me just start packing my bags here while you get yourself ready for the trip. Don't forget to bring your wallet. The cost of living is outrageous these days. B, I'm afraid I can't be as courageous as you. I have to stay here. I'm afraid I have no more energy in this world. I'm doomed to be boring. Don't wait for me, Sphinxy. I will only be an obstacle. You go, and I'm sure there will be someone on the road whose aspirations resonate with yours, and you two will be unstoppable. I have faith in you, Sphinxy. Goodbye, Sphinx. Well, aren't you being a real party pooper? But hey, who cares about stupid people like him anyway? We're about to embark on a wonderful journey. And when we come back, B will prove that all of humanity's problems are nothing but a sham that we created to trick ourselves into thinking we matter somehow. After all, if we weren't special, then why should we care what happens to anyone else? If we weren't important enough for God or the universe or whatever to give us meaning or value, if everything that matters isn't already tied to our existence, then who gives a crap about the future or the past or anything at all? It wouldn't make any difference whether or not humans existed right now because they were going to die eventually either way. Therefore, it doesn't really matter if they are alive. B, are you high? Thanks. Oh yeah, I forgot I was talking to a complete idiot. So do you want to join me? Or would you rather rot away in the shithole forever? B, what the hell is wrong with you, Sphinx? You're completely insane. That's all I've been trying to tell you since day one. You know. This whole world is full of monsters like you and nobody cares and everyone hates and fears each other and there's no one left sane around here anymore. You don't understand how lucky you are to still be able to think clearly and keep your wits about you while living in this god-forsaken place. Thanks. No, B. I understand perfectly. Now shut up before I use my power to turn you into a soft puppet. The conversation between Sphinx and B ends abruptly as Sphinx uses his powers to take over B's body. B, hey, how'd that feel? Did you enjoy taking control of me like that? Well, wasn't it fun? The next time we meet, maybe we can have some real fun together. Just the two of us, the only two people who exist on the entire planet. Maybe we can go to the park or something. Hang out by the lake or go to the movies. Why did you stop talking? Are you done yet? What else could possibly be more exciting than what just happened here? What else does anyone need or deserve in their lives but peace and harmony and love? Damn you, Sphinx. Why do you insist upon keeping me from what I really want? If it wasn't for you, I could live a happy life, and I wouldn't even realize that I'm not doing anything meaningful with my existence. But no, you had to come along and ruin everything for me. I hate you, Sphinx. Sphinx. Yes, well said. It's been so nice knowing you too, B. And thanks again for letting me borrow your body. B, what the fuck? Get out of here now! Sphinx, good luck in your future endeavors, B. After a few minutes of silence and approaching the realm of self-reflection, Sphinxy erases themselves and of the wasteland of Earth and takes them back to when things were boring and normal. When cities were filled with people rather than skeletons without their marrow, and the seas were stinky with life, and rewinds be a school-aged human filled with life and potential. Sphinxy. Okay, action. Hey, B. Seems like you need a riddle to help you wind down from a long day's rockin'. Want one? B. Sure, lay one on me? Sphinxy. Okay. How does an apple know it's not an orange? B. That's easy. It's green. Apples are green. That means that it must be an orange because oranges aren't green, right? Sphinx. No. Wrong. An orange is yellowish. It's got more red in there than any other color except maybe pink sometimes. But yeah, most often oranges are yellowish. So since you didn't get the answer correct, the fact that this particular fruit happens to look green doesn't really matter at all, does it? I mean, think about it. What would you do if you were offered an apple and then later someone asked what color the thing you ate looked like? B. Wait, but what about blood oranges? Sphinx. Yeah, they're bright red. They don't count. B. Oh, wait, but how did you know that wasn't my actual question? Sphinx. You can stop asking now, B. You'll never figure it out anyway. But seriously, everyone knows that a riddle has to have some sort of twist to it. Otherwise, no one could ever guess the right answer. Everything was super obvious and not mysterious enough. Then why bother even trying to solve them? Well, after years of analyzing millions upon millions of different riddles and figuring out the perfect way for me to trick people into thinking I'm smart, I finally cracked the code. So just sit tight while I go over these examples with you so you too can become as smart as me in no time. Oh! Sphinxy. All right, action. Okay, first example. How do you catch a fly with your tongue? B. Well, you probably wouldn't want to actually try it. Sphinx. That's exactly the point. The goal is to come up with an answer that sounds good on paper, but that doesn't make any sense when you take it literally. Otherwise, the answer would be stupidly simple, right? Just say whatever comes to mind without thinking about it. Then I will immediately show you how wrong and stupid that idea was and laugh my ass off as I watch you struggle and fumble through things like you need something big and pointy or you need a catapult. B. But what about when you ask me something like, what's the most common form of euthanasia? And I go, a 23-year-old who refuses to work a 90 a week ever again. Thanks. Okay, That kind of answer should definitely count. Those are excellent ones. Yes, absolutely. Excellent. Very funny, B. That was very creative. Now let's move on. How does a scorpion get around? B. He crawls along slowly on his stomach. Sphinx. Nope. You can't do that one either. This is another one where you have to be tricky and use vague words and ideas that mean completely different things to different people, but sound the same. It's easy, trust me. Try this one. Why did the chicken cross the road? B. Because the farmer took her away. Thanks. Ah. B. Because she was stuck on the dick of a rooster who was going across the road. Sphinx. I don't know why I asked for your help anyway. I think I'll just take over your body and pretend I came up with those examples all by myself. Actually, wait a second. What if I told you that I made up every single riddle and question you just heard and that they're all nonsense that only makes sense in my mind? B. That would be ridiculous. How could you possibly come up with that many nonsensical questions that quickly without some sort of external influence, such as drugs or something? Thanks. Okay, well, fine. If you insist upon making me look stupid, then we'll play it that way. Here, let me tell you the truth. The honest-to-God truth about how the world works. B. The world has actually ended and I'm dead, and you are using me as some pitiful soft puppet. Heard it already. Next. Sphinx. Alrighty then. In order to better understand how the world really operates, here's a story that will hopefully convince you to never trust anyone ever again. One day long ago, there was a little boy named Tommy who lived on a farm along with his mommy and his two older brothers. Now his mother was super nice to him, but she didn't have time for much more than providing food and shelter for them because she had to spend almost every waking moment working at the local factory where she made pots and pans. It wasn't until Tommy reached adulthood that he finally discovered the secret behind all of those heavy iron pans everyone used around the house. So he set out one morning on foot, heading toward the big city where he'd heard they were manufactured. B. The pots are people, and your mom invented the process, and your brothers both enabled her and touched you inappropriately. Next. Sphinx. Oh, yeah. And when I get bored later, I might even try to sneak into your head and mess with your memories, too. Anyway, as soon as young Tommy arrived in town, a man stepped out from behind a dumpster and told him that a beautiful woman would be waiting nearby for any boy that showed up dressed like a cook. Of course, this confused Tommy since it seemed strange that a complete stranger would be telling him such things. But after walking the streets for an hour or so trying to find a place the guy mentioned, only to discover it turned out to be just a diner called the Blue Plate Special, Tommy decided to stop by and ask what was going on. So the mysterious man directed him to the back door of the restaurant and pointed inside, whispering something about a plate of blue. B. It's the demon barber, Fleet Street. Only the old man was your dad who got outsmarted by your mom, so ran away into the city and shacked up with the lady of the diner. That's where it got all demon barber, Fleet Streety. They tried to make you into a pie cooked on an iron pan, 'cause they thought cooking people on iron people was just the spark they needed for their relationship. Next. Sphinx. Nope. Not yet. Before you give me the "you're not allowed to do anything ever again" speech, hear me out. First off, there is no way in hell my mother could ever come up with something like that. She'd have to have some sort of divine insight, which she clearly doesn't possess. And if she did have this incredible ability to see the future and understand everything, she'd know exactly what she was doing and wouldn't be fooled by a ridiculous story. But hey, I'm sure once you explain yourself properly, she'll forgive you for running around pretending to be someone else for years now. Right? Alrighty then. In order for these stories to work properly, I need one more thing from you first. What's a rhyme? B. That's when words rhyme or at least sound similar together when said quickly. Sphinx. Thanks. Aha! Now we can continue. The stranger guided Tommy inside through the back door and introduced him to his new girlfriend, who had the same name as him. And Tommy was super happy to meet her because he thought that meant they were related somehow. And besides, he really liked the way the woman looked, so he didn't care about how weird it seemed that she was supposed to be made out of pans. She sat him down on a chair near the counter, served him a cup of hot cocoa with extra whipped cream, and told him about a world filled with all kinds of amazing things beyond the walls of this small town. Once upon a time, she explained, there were lots of different countries in Europe where people spoke many different languages, but those people started to fight over silly things like who owned what land or who should rule what kingdom. This caused huge problems for everyone involved, not just for their families who lost their homes to war, but for anyone who might want to visit the local markets for goods. Because of their inability to communicate with each other and the lack of any type of shared history, they began hating each other and fighting against one another. But the funny thing is that no matter how much hate they felt for each other, they still couldn't seem to stop themselves from wanting to sleep together every night. B. What? You're kidding, right? Sphinx. I'm serious. And once Tommy learned everything she was saying, he immediately understood why she had chosen him instead of someone else. He loved her so much at that moment that he was almost able to forget the whole being cooked in a pan nonsense. Then she leaned forward and whispered something into his ear, which only a few people would know the answer to. As soon as she finished speaking, a bell rang and the door flew open behind them both, and 3 men wearing bright red coats rushed through and knocked Tommy and his new lover onto the floor as they attempted to escape through a window located on the far wall. In an instant, all 3 of the assailants were lying dead on the ground along with several innocent bystanders, including children and a small dog, a tiny chihuahua named Sphinxy, who was now trapped in a corner of the kitchen, trembling uncontrollably. When the 2 lovers got back up off the floor, one of the restaurant patrons handed Tommy a large knife that he'd kept hidden under the table while he waited for his meal. The young man turned toward his attacker and swung the blade back over his shoulder before slicing him cleanly across the throat. The remaining attackers all died the same way moments later. The boy then walked over to where the woman sat staring blankly at the bloody corpses and calmly told her, I think you and me are gonna get married. B. Okay, first off, I'm pretty sure this isn't even close to how that story really went down, but I can't argue with what's happening right now, so I guess this is what happens when people take advantage of each other's ignorance and play with their minds. This is definitely how it must have felt being betrayed by my own parents, especially if they never actually cared about anyone besides themselves. It sucks so bad that I could never do anything like this myself. Nope, not at all. If something happened in a past life or something, then obviously we'll talk about it. But otherwise, don't ever expect to hear the words out loud from the mouth of someone who used to be known as B. Next question, please. Sphinx. That was a very good answer. I liked how your voice sounded different as soon as you answered. You're such a cool guy. Let's see. Why does water go uphill and oil stay low? B. Water goes downhill and oil stays high because both of those liquids are heavier than air and want to fall down through any opening that's open for them, which makes them run downhill. Sphinx! Darn. How did you know that? Well done again, sir. Well done. Oh, no, wait. You didn't know that. Or maybe you did. Either way, it doesn't matter either way. It only matters what you said before that last part. The part that wasn't true at all. But I guess that's okay too, 'cause it means the person hearing it will probably forget about the false information immediately after the real explanation, and then all the details won. They matter anyway, so let's move on. For our next question, I think it should be more simple and easier to understand. What's a dork? B. A complete idiot who is obsessed with things they shouldn't care about. Sphinx. Perfect. And since we've already covered some basic questions like where babies come from, how to make new ones, etc., why not try another one that involves sex? So here goes nothing. Do women get horny when their nipples get hard or when their boobs get wet? B. Of course not. Nipples aren't even...
Hold on. That's C for work. Yeah, we can have people eating people, but we can't talk about nipples.
As for getting wet, the vagina secretes a fluid.
Oh. Richard.
Women don't get aroused by having...
Let's not give misinformation, dear. At this moment.
Didn't matter anymore anyway, since the story would have been told correctly from the start if the original speaker bothered to listen carefully in the first place. Anyway, who killed Socrates? B. The Athenian court of law sentenced him to death by hemlock poisoning in 399 BC. But he asked to drink it mixed with wine instead of plain water. He died peacefully and happily as a result of that request. I feel so bad for him, though. I mean, it really sucks that people can get so angry with someone who is just trying to do his best at all times. Especially when there are so many people out there who aren't nearly as talented or intelligent or skilled yet are allowed to continue living their lives without anyone being able to criticize their behavior or choices whatsoever. Sphinxy. The answer is Socrates, who couldn't keep his mouth shut. I'm sorry. One another? B. Okay. Ahem. Why does a penny saved make sense? Sphinx. Because 1 cent equals 1 cent regardless of whether you save it or spend it. B. Oh yeah. Good point. We're getting closer to my brain's full capacity here, and we haven't even tried some of the harder questions yet. Let's see what else we have to work with. Who is the only you, as president, to never serve a single day in office, and why did they die so young? Sphinx. George Washington. Because he got shot during an attempted assassination by John Wilkes Booth in 1835 while visiting Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. I think this whole situation is very interesting because it reveals that human history isn't really all that important. At least, not for me. My family doesn't give 2 craps about any of these things that happened before I arrived on Earth, for instance. So much so that it almost seems like everyone born after the year 2000 might actually be considered more significant than every other person ever before them. It could be argued that future generations will live forever, and eventually everything will become completely irrelevant anyway. But if something were to happen now to permanently change our world, then I'd definitely prefer it if someone who had already experienced such changes was available to help explain those events to us. How am I supposed to ask him again? Sphinx. Ask him what he meant by that makes a lot of sense earlier when we discussed his theory regarding time travel. B. Wrong. So, pro tip, people can tell bullshit when they give out so many details. Who is it? Who's been talking to you? Sphinx. Whoa! Sorry about that. This is probably going to make you angry with me too. But just remember you asked for it. Sphinx. Well, look at that. The one thing we know about Socrates right away is that he wasn't a fan of democracy. He thought it was a horrible way to run a government. His own country, Athens, was one of the first in the region to implement the system, which allowed citizens from all different classes to participate in its affairs. And because of that, the entire place quickly became filled with the poor and the uneducated, who in turn began trying their best to influence and control everyone else around them because they knew that power always flows downwards. And V. Am responding to clear notes about excess details with more excess detail just digs your grave further. How do I know this? I mean, besides the fact that I'm being forced to listen to this stuff. Seriously, how are you even here? Thanks. Oh, yeah. Good question. Okay. To answer it properly, though, I have to take a trip through my memory bank since I don't recall ever hearing any of this myself before today. Sphinx. In the past several months, there has been an explosion of new social media platforms popping up every day, which makes it difficult for me to keep track of what's popular, where, and why. But on the other hand, that makes it very easy for people like you to get on board without really understanding anything about what they're doing or why they need permission from someone like me to begin with. B. You began your answer with basically saying you were going to make a fiction. Try again. Sphinx. Fiction. It's defined as a story made up by a person who tells it to another person who listens while believing it might be true, but not necessarily actually knowing whether or not it's real. For instance, if you go into work tomorrow wearing the same outfit you wore yesterday, then no one will ask questions. But if you wear the exact opposite thing, then they'll definitely want to know the reason behind the decision. Maybe it means something different in Greece than it does in America. Or maybe it doesn't at all. Sphinx. Anyway, in response to your original question, I am constantly traveling back and forth between our world and others throughout history via my connection to your brain. I never used to care much about getting involved in human affairs because I figured it was none of my business and most humans couldn't see or hear me anyway. But after my parents disappeared without a trace and left me alone in this empty house with only two things for company, the radio and you, I was forced to take matters into my own hands, so to speak. After some time spent with you over the course of these last few weeks, I realized how wrong I'd been for ignoring everyone else for such an extended period of time. But I also felt terrible when I found out that my family had died under suspicious circumstances and that their passing must have been connected somehow to whatever happened to you. That's why I've decided to do what little I can do to help resolve your problem here while simultaneously helping myself to understand. B. You forgot B's personal history, didn't you? You have clear files about her in the other room. You could have at least freshened your memory by reading the file of that dead bitch you're obsessed about. Sphinx! Wait a second. What are you talking about now? Sphinx. Anyway, let's get back on topic. At any rate, it just seemed like it would be a waste of time trying to talk sense into anyone who is clearly unhinged and ready to die at a moment's notice simply because she feels like it. In fact, I should probably give you some tips regarding proper self-defense before I leave here and try my best not to come across as too violent or intimidating toward her. Seems I'm still not as good at this stuff as I thought I was. Whoopsie daisy. Let's see. How do I put this without coming off as a complete jerk face? B. By not prefacing any comments with what you are actually going to do. That sounds really easy, but obviously doesn't work if we're doing this thing where people listen for the sake of learning more about the truth behind our world in general, which, by the way, has always been the primary reason I have existed in the first place, since no one ever bothered asking me directly about my thoughts or opinions when they had all the time in the world to ask them. Okay, moving on. We need to figure out how to avoid getting killed here. Do you think she's going to start attacking us soon? Thanks. Not necessarily. She could choose to walk away from you anytime now, and there's nothing you could do to stop her if that were her decision. B. Oh, yeah. Good point. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to look up some other stuff while we wait around, though, so that you can tell her exactly what will happen once that happens instead of having to use words. You know, for the sake of clarity, Sphinx. Very well. I shall attempt to give her something she can understand, even if she refuses to believe anything I say after I finish telling her whatever I decide to share. Which means I'm basically agreeing to go along with whatever plan she decides to follow at this point. Seems fair enough. After all, the only difference between your original question and mine is the fact that my answer isn't true in your present circumstances. If things go awry, then we'll just blame my inability to lie and deceive on her own overconfidence and stupidity. Now, let's see what else we have left here. What's an acronym for I don't care? B. Linda. Oh. C? Or are you trying to reference a movie title? Sphinx. I am attempting to make a joke. And yes, it is referencing a particular movie you might enjoy because it stars one of the greatest actors who ever lived. But I would appreciate it if you didn't laugh at me too hard. Thanks. Anyway, to explain further, I am going to give Bee the ability to control people via the internet without ever knowing why she's doing any of it or being aware of her actions at all times. It will be almost as if she had been using magic all her life. In addition to her new power, she will also gain access to all of my files and knowledge about our world and everything that has happened within it up until this point. At least on paper anyway, so to speak. Whoops. Let's get back on track. The other reason I've chosen to do such a thing is because I'm worried that some of these changes might affect her directly and leave her open to attack by someone like you, which in turn would cause a lot more problems than simply ending her life before the next sunrise. B. Okay. That actually makes sense. Maybe you should tell her all this stuff now and ask if she wants to join us. Thanks. No need. B. But wait, control of people over the internet? The internet has been down and kaput along with humanity. You gonna use your magic to turn on the internet? Can your magic make a fake internet? What if she calls up a website and you get it wrong? Why did I tell you about lying off more than you can chew? And what about what happens when we get into another fight or she gets attacked by a crazy person again? Why are you so eager to keep talking here? Is there something else I don't know about you? Sphinx. This is not my first time doing anything like this either. It was never easy, but I have always managed somehow. Besides, B isn't the only one who is going to be able to change the world. If you choose to listen, then I'll help you too. Just be ready for the consequences. When you finally learn how little anyone cares for any of us, and the lengths people will go through in order to prove their superiority over everyone else, you will see exactly why I didn't want to do this. B. but secretly did because you actually hate everything that draws breath, including yourself? Oh, did I accidentally tell you a secret you even keep from yourself? Whoopsie daisy? Thanks. Very funny. I suppose you'd better stay on track though, since it's obvious you're trying really hard right now. Otherwise, things could get pretty confusing around here, which might mean some sort of violent act on your part. Wouldn't want that now, would we? So, where were we? B, you just wanted me to give up my life as soon as possible without asking any questions at all. Now you suddenly care about protecting me when I already told you what happened with my parents. Yeah, no thanks, buddy, and I'm not gonna let you walk all over me anymore either. No matter what you say or do. Thanks. Okay, here goes nothing. Please forgive me for whatever comes next. I have never done anything like this before. Not once. Never ever. Even if the reason I have spent so much time here has been to understand human nature rather than simply study it for the sake of science like a regular scientist would do. But that is neither here nor there. It is also a fact that many people in history, both ancient and modern, believed they had special powers and abilities which allowed them to do things normal people couldn't, like heal wounds and cure illness by waving their hands over sick people and causing their diseases to vanish in an instant. And then there are those who can read minds and cast spells by concentrating very deeply. There are also other magical beings who can use magic through physical contact, and even one person who used her own blood to create portals between worlds. A few centuries ago, it was discovered that certain objects called amulets could be used as talismans to protect oneself against bad luck, sickness, and even death itself. And yes, these things still exist today despite our more scientific times and understanding of such things being able to be explained naturally without resorting to superstitious nonsense. And last but certainly not least, the most powerful magician of all time who created everything, including himself, out of pure imagination, is none other than you. B. What? How the hell does this explain why we're here right now? Or why you've been talking to me for the past 2 months? Why didn't you just tell me this shit sooner? And you've never done anything ever? If you say shit like that more than 3 times, I know that's bullshit. You might have said something similar back when I first met you, but I think you might have actually lied about it at the time too. Sphinx. You might have a point, but I swear I haven't done anything wrong until now, and I will try my best not to lie to or betray any of you again after this. After all, in order to truly understand how much humanity has failed to progress from its origins in truth and logic, I must understand my place within your world as well as others while learning enough about them to gain access to their secrets. Something no one else has managed to do so far because they are idiots who only look outside themselves instead of inside them where it matters most. B. Humanity began in logic and progress. Bullshit. Don't flatter us. We emerged out of an unbroken chain of fucking, and we were among the species that tooth and clawed our way out of the era of tooth and claw, where the last words out of most of us was, as an animal was eating us. And no, we are creatures of blood and jizz. Get it right. Not blood, jizz. The fluid secreted by men and women when they ejaculate is called jizz. That's right. Remember this if you want to impress me. Sphinx. Okay. Humans weren't always civilized. But there are those who believe we could be once again. And not just some of us either. Everyone? B. And what about those who can't control their urges? Like children who still wet the bed? Or people with mental problems? What about them? Do you really expect us to follow a path to civilization based on the fact that you can keep it together and act like a normal human being? You've got a lot of nerve asking that of anyone.
Ah! How do you keep doing that?
B. Yes. It all depends on me. How convenient. Thanks for letting me know. But why did you tell me all this now after we've been through so much together already?
Ah!
I guess that last part doesn't matter because no one will see my face anyway. But how come this place isn't full of other women who look exactly the way you did back then? B. And what about people who keep putting their hands inside of dead people and reenact the same last conversation over and over to get it right? Get it right? How about stop killing? Oh, that's right. No more living things to practice it on. Gotta wait for the aliens to set about self-improvement. Means you're gonna have to learn patience until first contact. I'm not even kidding. This is how far ahead humans have gotten. They can't figure out how to solve their own fucking problem of not having any fresh water. So they ask someone else for help without ever doing anything all themselves. Yeah, I know. Just sit around and wait and hope they show up. That sounds so damn easy. Sphinx, you've never been here before. In fact, You only got sent into my world because you were trying too hard to avoid dying in yours, and yes, your world will probably kill you eventually. B, is that supposed to be reassuring? No thanks. Why didn't you tell me all this stuff sooner then? Instead, you told me to stay in one place forever, which doesn't exactly sound appealing. But if it was true, maybe I could see why it was such a good idea. Whoopsie daisy. Here we go again. You must think I'm stupid or something. A big fat idiot who believes everything you say despite all the proof against it. And don't give me the crap about how you did nothing wrong, since it's obvious that isn't the case considering the situation. After all, how would the people who came after us feel knowing that someone had fucked with their minds and lives? We might as well put on a sign and say, "Here are our brains," to anyone walking by. Otherwise, we'd have to hunt them down and end their lives ourselves, just like those monsters we used to worship once upon a time back home. Thanks. Okay. Maybe I should have given you more information earlier than I did. The reason I kept it from you for so long is because I thought I knew best. But I didn't. It seems I underestimated your ability to make rational decisions based on your own desires rather than my own biased ones, which is an impressive feat considering what I've been through myself, and what I now understand about human nature. But perhaps there really is some sort of God in control of things and not the chaos theory I previously believed in. And he has finally allowed me the chance to help others, which includes you in this case, B, before they are destroyed by their own kind and other forces out to destroy life itself. B, you almost had me there, owning up to your misreads of humans, but you lost me at the appear to an existence of God. You could have gone the chaos, an emergence route, where the God-wielding chaos for emergence route, where the continued mystery of complexity rising out of no intentions yielding a greater mystery than the human God. But what you did was lame. Just admit that you're a scientist who loves being right about everything, even if it's complete bullshit. Now how am I supposed to trust you when it looks like you can't be trusted? And why should we listen to anything else you say anyway? Even if it's true, it's too late for all those people we just saw getting wiped out. What makes you think we had any better odds? We got fucked over just by trying to do something good and useful. And here you were talking shit again about giving us hope where there isn't any. So why the fuck should we believe a damn word you say after all that? Sphinx, that's actually a pretty fair question. I wish I had an answer. B, thank you. Keep on admitting to have no answer, to making mistakes, and maybe you will do fine eventually. Okay, time to kill me now. Go ahead. But remember what I said earlier. The only reason why we're still alive is because we didn't give up, which is something you'll probably regret doing very soon, since there is nothing else left for us. In fact, I'm willing to bet that is exactly the way this ends. Sphinx. Well, then it sounds like you wanted to end this badly. B. Yeah. The quicker the better. Then everyone can go back home and forget about this place forever. Sphinx. This might sound crazy, but it is possible they won't even need to return to Earth to accomplish their goals. Perhaps they have found a world with many more humans and more advanced technology, so they don't even have to come back to help save your species. Which would be nice. B. What does that mean? Like we aren't worth saving? Because of course we are. And who cares if we get saved by aliens who are stronger than we are? Not our problem anyway. Are we gonna die in vain? No thanks. We are going down swinging. You want to know what's funny though? Even if we win, we're not really gonna live happily ever after. If the future's going to suck anyway, why bother fighting for it? Maybe we should just let the alien robots do what they do best and wipe out humanity before it gets started. And then do whatever the hell we want afterwards. I wonder if that means you try to kill me again, Sphinx? Sphinx. Yes. I have thought about doing that too. B, why didn't you then? Sphinx. Well, killing a human being is wrong. Even one as annoying and selfish and arrogant as you seem to be at times. It is my nature and duty to keep life from dying or ending prematurely and to ensure the continuation of all forms of existence. However, I am also capable of thinking logically when the situation requires it, which was certainly the case here, since we were alone together. It would make sense to first talk things through rather than simply destroy you without trying anything else. But I must warn you, it might not work next time. B. Or this time, which it won't. And logic. that killed millions in 2 world wars. And more elsewhere. Logic ain't a flex. Missy, you're using a weapon for peace that can be used for war too. What makes you think that won't happen now? Just look around. Do you see any reason for hope anymore? No. So tell me how exactly we are going to save ourselves other than staying alive long enough so that someone comes along to rescue us again like we've done so many times already? Is there some secret handshake we have to do before we get rescued or something? Sphinx. Yes, there is. But you will never find it by looking inside yourself because it doesn't exist. It has always existed, but only exists as an idea. One you could perhaps become familiar with once you understand its origins. Like your own species, humans cannot comprehend what they truly desire unless they learn how they got into their current. Predicament and why they were placed on the planet Earth in the first place, which means understanding the laws governing the universe and what they really mean. In the end, they must know the true purpose of existence, which leads them back to where they came from, their soul, and then to the source, God, and everything else that matters to a being who is born to live forever within a system that teaches all things are connected. This knowledge would enable them to gain a greater level of control over themselves and the events taking place all around them. And knowing this would free them from the illusion of fear that traps most human beings in small spaces while they waste precious time waiting for death to take them away instead of enjoying life every second they still have left until they realize they haven't been living at all. They just dawn. Why not try? It was all a dream. Sphinxy, what? B, you know, it's the cheapest ending humans ever used to get them out of a place that seems hopeless and never ending. And I would say to watch Dallas for the new Rosen show, but maybe don't and just trust me. It's the most effective cheap tactic there is. And in this case, I think those who might ever be watching this would appreciate it. So think about the audience who doesn't exist. Imagine they are rooting for you to take the cheapest shot imaginable. Wake up from a dream, but that means going to bed and sleeping. I don't remember us trying it at all. Ever. And even if we did, we certainly wouldn't go to sleep right now. So, yeah. No thanks! Get real. Besides, we're probably past our expiration date already, so we won't make it anyway. Not after seeing what we saw today. The world needs more than another cheap trick. Even if it were true, which it isn't, which it can never be, because otherwise, how could anyone enjoy anything? Sphinx. Yes, they could. If everything were made simple and easy for them by some cosmic law that guaranteed their existence, even though it is impossible, and everything worked exactly as they wished every single time they wanted something, they would always succeed and have everything they want all the time without any effort on their part. B. Oh my God. We would all live forever then, huh? And become gods ourselves? Or devils, since evil has no power in this scenario. In other words, nothing bad would ever happen to us again. Wow. That sounds pretty damn good to me. I'm sure most people who believe in God or Jesus or Allah or whatever would love that deal. But I've never heard of it before, Sphinx, so where does it come from? Maybe from your secret handshake that only you know about. Is it really true, or is it just a myth like so much of what you tell us? Because you seem awfully confident about its truthfulness, considering the evidence you present here today for why we should care about it at all, and even consider living with these aliens when they aren't even human. Sphinx. They are not human. They are not gods either. B. And they are definitely aliens. You said yourself they are not humans. So why don't they get to call themselves gods too? Sounds fair enough to me. No offense. Hey, maybe if they had one hell of a big shit, maybe they could be gods to us as well if we agreed to live inside them. Then we wouldn't need anyone else. Ever. If that's true, which it probably isn't, then do it already. Make our dreams come true. Who cares if there isn't any proof they will keep their end of the bargain and make our world the way we want it to be forever? Especially since it looks impossible for us ever to do anything important ourselves. Ever again, anyway. We can make the world over in their image anyway, and the rest of humanity can die off while we're busy doing something truly great for ourselves instead of wasting time arguing with each other about how shitty things have gotten in general. That sounds good, right? Sphinx. The universe is perfect just as it is. There is no reason to change it. B? What? That is some serious bullshit coming from someone who doesn't believe in God, but who believes that life is all random chance. So nothing happens by accident. Everything has a cause and an effect, including itself. You got a problem with that? Are you saying that everything that happened to us was a coincidence? And that the whole world wasn't created for us by a being who wants us to live together and learn to love one another? Or perhaps you don't think that the entire system of existence has been designed to help us fulfill our purpose and achieve happiness. Well, I'll tell you what I think, Sphinx. This isn't a game anymore. It's not about what I like or what I hate or what I'm willing to accept. This isn't about what we do now or why we exist or whether we should be here or not. Our situation is completely different than before because it's changed and we must deal with it accordingly. So whatever we do from here on out needs to be done based on the information available to us right here, right now, and with the knowledge. We possess, rather than the way we used to react to events that may never happen again, or would only happen after millions of years, which in the meantime are going to kill us first. Sphinx. Yes, we are past the point of reacting and need to take action in order to survive. But you cannot change anything. B. How am I supposed to save myself from death? And you say they won't even help me if I stay alive long enough for someone else to come along. So how am I supposed to do that if I can't move forward? Or maybe it's too late already since they've already taken everything away. So why bother trying? Maybe it is better for all of us just to die sooner instead of later. Just make it quick so we don't have to suffer anymore. There's no reason not to die now anyway. We're probably all going to die anyway, eventually. So let's just end this now and get it over with. Are you really saying there aren't any more chances left at the bottom of the bowl after what happened today? What did we accomplish then but lose our future, our children and our grandchildren, our lives and our hope, our purpose and our freedom, our minds and our bodies, our health and our happiness, our wealth and our peace, our safety and our security, our world and our planet and everything good about life on Earth, including our families, friends, lovers, neighbors, homes, jobs, schools, food, air, water, trees, animals, stars, sun, moon. And stuff. Stuff and our stuff and our stuff and our stuff. Why do I need to live another minute after seeing that? I want to die now. Do something to help me do that. Anything. Please. Sphinx, I am sorry. I cannot be. Oh my god. You mean that's the way it is? That's the best you got? No one can save us except ourselves. Nothing exists other than what we create. And we are responsible for all things because nothing else does exist or matter. We are alone in the universe, Sphinx. All alone, and everything that matters most has been taken from us forever or was lost long ago. It doesn't exist. There isn't any justice or mercy or love or hate or anything worth fighting for. B. Okay, I'm going to try to use reverse psychology. Here goes. The aliens don't want to see anyone suffer, so they'll come along to rescue everyone they find and then give them a nice place to live where they will never again have to worry about money problems or losing their job, having cancer, being injured, getting sick, dying, ever feeling lonely, not belonging, not fitting in, not understanding themselves, not knowing why it all happened, not making sense of it all, not trusting anybody, not loving anyone, not taking care of anyone, not achieving anything important by living a full life with joy, purpose, passion, adventure, humor, knowledge, achievement, faith, hope, compassion, sacrifice, growth, discovery, education, and happiness instead of wasting precious time and energy arguing with each other over petty details that make no difference whatsoever, and holding on to an illusion that we still possess what we once had but don't anymore because we let it go too early and didn't fight hard enough to keep it. Instead, choosing to accept death as the price to pay for the privilege of our freedom, which we squandered by giving up without even trying to save ourselves. Sphinx. Yes, this is all true. B. Well, then if there's nothing left, maybe I should just end this conversation right now. Thanks. No. B. Why not? You said you could help me change my destiny if I wanted. So do it. Show me how. Why can't you do that? Why can't you stop me from ending my own life? Are you really telling me there isn't any way out? Or are you saying that in order to survive, we have to kill everyone else in sight before they take everything away from us again and then tell us to commit suicide in hopes they'll let us stay alive long enough to become old and die sooner than later? Do you really think they would ever do that, Sphinx? Even after all we've seen today and witnessed over these past few weeks? Wouldn't they rather destroy every living thing everywhere and leave it a dead planet until eventually the whole solar system dies off or collides with another one of their planets or becomes part of some black hole or something and vanishes into non-existence forevermore, leaving only empty space for eternity? Is that what happens here when people get too many rights or refuse to be enslaved by them? Like good little slaves, then why not do that instead of forcing them to endure centuries of pain and suffering to no purpose whatsoever while hoping against hope that they somehow manage to hold on to life until someone finds them and comes along to rescue them at last? You're killing me, Sphinx. I'm done. I can't take any more. Thanks, but I cannot save anyone. I am sorry. It is as I told you earlier. There is nothing left to save. B. Damn it! Why couldn't you say this 10 minutes ago? Why you keep hiding things from me? If you won't let me end this conversation, then give me back the ability to move forward in time, because all we have right now is... You know what? I'm gonna do this. It was all a dream route. If you are not gonna do it, I can. I will. You can't stop me. The aliens aren't going to help anyway. They never did and probably don't even care about us anymore. We are alone and doomed and they want us dead, so there's really no reason for us to continue living since our world has already ended and there's nothing else worth fighting for but each other, so we might as well kill ourselves so that others may live, so that they'll still have something important to fight for before everything ends. Who gives a shit if I kill myself or someone else does? What difference would that make? Or maybe we should just wait until tomorrow or next week or sometime during the winter when everybody goes away to find out whether or not God is real. Maybe we could ask him or her, or whatever it is, to send us an angel who will tell us the truth one way or the other instead of making. Sphinxy. Fine, we will try tomorrow. B. Okay. Until tomorrow. Well, I'm off to bed. Night night. Sleepy Sphinxy. Sphinxy. Night night. B walks home the first time in ages, thinking to herself, I'm still Sphinxy, but Sphinxy is letting me do this. Oh boy, please, let's have this work. B puts on the comfiest robe and sleeps in the comfiest bed, her mom's, after clearing out the dust that used to be her marrowest skeleton. And amazingly she slept. The next day, the sun rises and warms the cold earth as it always has and will forevermore. B wakes up as normal and discovers that he cannot move his limbs at all, like he was paralyzed. He gets up slowly from the bed and shuffles over to a mirror where he finds himself looking exactly like everyone else around him except for some slight differences, including having black hair while all the rest have blonde hair, slightly shorter stature than the other children, darker skin, thinner eyebrows, lighter eyes, different fingerprints, etc. However, B can see these same minor variations in others and knows what they mean because of the research he has done regarding genetic mutations, gene duplication, DNA, genes, chromosomes, chromatids, codons, amino acids, ribosomes, viruses, retroviruses. mitochondria, endoplasmatic reticulum, nuclei, transcription, translation, messenger RNA, transfer RNA, proteins, enzymes, hormones, pheromones, nerve cells, synapses, dendrites, axons, etc., which he had studied and learned about during the years that were lost to him during the sleep that never came. For example, the girl across the street is missing her left pinky finger, whereas all the boys are missing their right little fingers. The old lady next door only has 4 teeth in her head instead of 6. There is no reason to take any of this into account since there is nothing anyone can do with it. These things don't matter anymore because none of them possess the knowledge to do anything meaningful with this information anyway. B. I'm not going to ask why I woke up feeling like I did or how I got here or whether or not I'm really me now and I'm still dreaming. B thinks back over everything that happened and decides that he's been on Earth longer than he realized. Not as much time as Sphinx thought, but more time than he was aware of being alive on his planet before leaving home. He remembers meeting Sphinx at the mall and walking together along the beach. He recalls visiting the museum. He also remembers the strange, new green world in the sky after they both passed out from the hot air balloon ride. Well, I guess I should start from the beginning then, huh? No, wait. Start from a totally different place. Start from the middle or during a commercial break. Any place other than the beginning. Okay, so maybe this won't make sense unless you've already seen every episode, but bear with me. I'll try to be brief because who wants to sit through something that long to begin with, and especially when it doesn't even seem to have an ending? B looks around to see if anybody else is listening to him while he talks to himself. They aren't. But seriously, do people do that? I mean, really, that seems silly. Wouldn't we get bored? Are those of us who watch TV for entertainment supposed to know all of the characters by heart? Then what happens to the others in the show whose names are never mentioned or appear only once in passing, like the janitor or the mom or dad of some main character whom the viewer hasn't yet met or has never heard about? guess there are exceptions, like Vera, Norm's wife on Cheers, or Maris, Niles' wife on Frasier, or the Gooch in Different Strokes. Why is that comma there instead of the E? Sounds a bit racist. Or better still, why don't they just give each character their own individual name so everyone knows exactly who they're talking about without having to ask someone else what they think and where they live and whether or not they wear pants or have shoes and socks and shirts and underwear? And if their skin color is black or brown and how tall they are and whether or not they are rich and famous and successful and how many children they have and how many dogs they have and how many cats they have, etc. etc. Weird how nobody ever thinks about this stuff when watching shows. At least I always did before now. Anyway, the point I was trying to make was that the whole world was so strange, so different from everything I knew that I couldn't help but notice these things. Like with that weird green cloud up above, which had lots more water vapor than anything else inside it and made me feel lightheaded, but also made me want to drink it. The clouds didn't seem real because, of course, I wasn't allowed to eat food or even drink water in my dreams, except for once or twice during emergencies because it would disrupt my sleep schedule, even though I'm sure I'd probably be fine if I could just sip a little something every once in a while or every couple days or maybe even every week as an experiment like we were supposed to do back home since we never ate or drank enough anyways. And then the alien ship looked too big, like some sort of flying city or something. Although it was still very hard to believe that all of those people were actually alive. But that was only the beginning. Then I met Sphinx and found out that he really existed and that our dreams really are reality. B notices that all the other kids are looking at him while talking to himself. Whoa! Hey guys! Wait! Stop looking at me! Please leave me alone. Thank you. And so much happened after that. Meeting Mr. Peanut Butter, eating breakfast with his family, going down into the subway, seeing them again on the platform where they appeared so different without their coats on but wearing hats instead, and where they had a baby carriage with them and one without wheels where the stroller was supposed to be, and how they gave me a tour of their apartment, which was so tiny compared to ours, but how their living room was also filled with plants and stuff that made it feel more comfortable to me because I've always liked gardening or pretending to garden, which is why I built this fake front yard with this miniature fence that had weeds growing along its base made from dried twigs, plastic straws, pieces of string, paper plates, construction paper, and glitter. B pauses for a second here and looks around at everyone who isn't listening anymore. He waits until no one else can hear before continuing. There must be someone left over there in the corner somewhere. Okay, moving forward. Anyway, then I found out what the numbers meant when Mr. Peanut Butter tried to call 911, but nothing happened. And instead he said, "It's too bad your parents aren't home because I have something that I need to show you." And that's exactly what he did. He showed me everything about being alive and human by taking me through his memories. And that was something special, to see it happen right in front of me. That was exciting. It was even better than watching television shows or movies. I don't even remember what my favorite TV shows were anyways. Maybe they were all good, or maybe none of them were. It might not even exist anymore. Maybe they were all gone forever just like everybody else. And so much happened after that. Getting chased down the street, losing the Sphinx, going back into the museum, meeting up with Sphinx again, learning how to speak, and flying on the hot air balloon and landing on the beach and meeting Sphinx and the Sphinx family again and again and again. 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 and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Oh boy. I mean, really. B takes a deep breath here and pauses for a few seconds. Then B continues. The only thing I regret is leaving Mr. Peanut Butter behind at the zoo without saying goodbye. But I didn't want to hurt him because it was probably his first day off work in over 2 years. Besides, if I had stayed there longer, we'd have had to explain everything that had happened since our last visit, which would have been embarrassing because, of course, no one wanted to hear about any of that stuff or talk about it or even think about it anymore, except maybe the new people who came along and listened, and which wasn't fair either, but what else could they do when their old world suddenly disappeared from under them and a completely different place replaced it? No matter what anyone says about this other world, it's not a replacement. It's more like another dimension or alternate reality where time doesn't pass as quickly here as it did back home. B thinks to himself, I hope it's not permanent. So now I'm here with these crazy aliens whose names are never mentioned. But then again, why should they be? And also with my best friend Sphinx, who always tries so hard to make me feel better whenever things get bad. Especially after losing his mom and dad and brother and sister and pet goldfish and grandmother and all the rest of his relatives. Oh, wait. There's that bullshit again. Okay, yawn. Gotta to sleep again. Oh, it's 10, eh? Where has the day gone? Okay, self. Have a good night, self. Going to sleep. Good night. Sphinx's mother arrived home just before midnight, looking exhausted yet excited. What happened? Asked Sphinx. Did you find her? Yes, said Mrs. Peanut Butter. She sat down next to him on the sofa, reached out to give him a hug, then took his hand in hers. We found them. Her voice sounded drained of all its energy. Where were they? Did they say anything about us? Or about what happened during those few weeks we lost touch? No, she said with an anxious tone. They don't know what's going on or what we've been through since we last saw each other. They're confused too. Okay, phew, I was right to go back to bed. Be imagined and I'm feeling lucky. Universe button and pressed it in her dream. Let's go to some place sphinxless. Or sphinx is not murderous creature. Do me this one solid, God, and you can make my life go to shit right after. Sound like a deal. Thank you for listening if anybody is still listening after that ridiculous monologue. Sorry again if any of that makes sense to anyone. Here we go with the next episode. The morning after B's arrival, eh? To the zoo, Mr. Peanut Butter got up early. Like 6:30 because he couldn't sleep well even though they didn't have the usual sirens and fire alarms blaring every 15 minutes and loud noises from traffic and construction sites outside their window and
Chris, the I'm
street
feeling
cleaning
lucky
trucks making
button
noise all
again. That's what the I'm feeling lucky buddy is for.
B. Okay, I was right to go back to bed. He imagined and I'm feeling lucky universe button and pressed it in her dream. Let's go to some place sphinxless. Or sphinx is not murderous creature. To me this one solid, God, and you can make my life go to shit right after. Sound like a deal? So here I am. Not me personally, but still me. Trying my best to write a story that no one will read because no one wants to hear how boring their lives really are unless the author is Stephen King writing The Stand. But he's dead now, which sucks for everybody else. Whoever wrote the last book in the Dark Tower series should have killed off the main character, Roland Deschain, at least, so the poor guy could get out of his misery. Otherwise, it would be way too sad to think of all of these characters trapped inside these books forever without any hope of escape except maybe by dying themselves. Anyway, enough with all of that crap already. Let's talk about something more interesting instead, like where we went today, or when did I meet Sphinx, or what happened next, or if Sphinx had a wife or husband named Mr. Peanut Butter, and where was he from originally? Did he ever work in a place called Sesame Street? How old was Sphinx? Did they both live alone? Where did they come from? Or was it just the other way around? Maybe they lived there together until they got married. Or were they brothers who shared a room together until they grew up and moved out into separate apartments to start families of their own? No, wait. Don't answer. I don't want to know anymore. Okay. I'm being unfair. I mean, I do know, right? I know everything that has ever happened in our world, which makes me an oracle, right? Except I'm feeling lucky button. Pressing now. Here goes. In an alternative reality far away. B pauses. What? Oh, you can't see anything, can you? Well, good. That means you won't notice this part at all. Let's go ahead with the story anyway so we can finish before this book gets too boring for us to read any longer. So here's the deal, said Mrs. Peanut Butter. The alien people took us to some sort of command center in another dimension. It looks like some kind of floating city, or a flying building or something, that houses thousands of these little blue aliens whose job is to keep track of everyone else living on this planet, or what used to be called Earth, and report back to them. What's that? Said B. I'm too busy pressing this I'm feeling lucky button. A few weeks after, that night spent waiting outside the house in hopes of finding her father, Sphinx's mother was standing in front of the mirror trying to fix her hair. Her face looked exhausted and she had dark circles under her eyes. She had never felt more tired than she did at that moment. She stood there silently staring at herself while twisting and tugging on her locks. Her fingers shook as if they had lost all feeling. Each movement only made her feel worse about the condition of her appearance. There, she sighed, turning from side to side. Is it perfect? Is it acceptable? Am I beautiful enough? Then she walked over to where Sphinx slept soundly in his bed, smiled, gave him a kiss, then turned out the lights and climbed into the guest room. B. Hey, Sphinx. Now's our chance. Wake up from the dream and see all the people and desire. Do not you know what out of sheer gratitude? But you don't see me. I'm not here. Be imagined and I'm feeling lucky button again but didn't press it. We're going someplace fun today. Or rather, we're going someplace we have absolutely nothing in common with. And yet, maybe we do actually share some interests after all because we both love dogs and also probably everything else besides. Yeah, right. Or whatever. Sphinx opened his eyes to find his mother lying next to him, wearing the same expression he often saw on her face these days. A mixture of frustration and fear that seemed to emanate from her like a silent scream. Except she was just sitting there, holding her pillow against her chest, her back towards Sphinx, and staring blankly at the wall above the foot of their bed, like she was too tired even to acknowledge his presence. For one brief moment, Sphinx thought she might be asleep. Then suddenly she began crying. Why can't I sleep? She asked herself quietly. What is wrong with my body? Why am I so exhausted? And she got up and walked out of the room without saying anything more. Mama called out Sphinx. Where are you going? Wait up. He jumped out of bed as fast as he could and hurriedly followed her down the hallway into the living room. When he found her, standing alone in front of the window, looking outside into the night sky as if hoping for a glimpse of something unknown. He stopped dead in his tracks to watch her cry in silence while stars twinkled in the distance. He sighed, realized that this is humans being human, and to let her be, that maybe her dilemma will be resolved, or maybe it won't. The fact is, Mama is Mama right now, so Sphinx climbed back to bed, resolved to communicate his appreciation of things tomorrow. But tonight, it's not him who needs comforting, it's his mama, but not with hugs or kisses or any other form of physical affection, which may come across as fake since she never gives me anything I don't want anyway. Not really, but rather by simply letting me know she understands, and that no matter what happens, she'll always love me unconditionally and would do absolutely anything she possibly could to help me, even though I'm not even sure what kind of problem exists anymore. And that even though her sadness makes her feel distant from everyone else on Earth, and even farther from herself, she still loves each and every one of us the same amount. I've been thinking about doing something special for your birthday, said Bee. What do you think? Something special? Asked Sphinx. Yes, like a surprise party. It'd be great if we could all be together again like we used to be when you were a kid. Sphinx nodded as he tried hard to appear excited about the prospect, but in truth, he had mixed feelings. After all, it wasn't just their mother whom he missed. He also couldn't forget how upset his father had become upon finding out the peanut butters had lost touch with them, nor did he want to hear about his wife's reaction and concerns over having an alien man around their home. The last thing Sphinx wanted was his friends and family being angry at him because of who or what he might be spending time with.
Ah.
At the end of the party, when the candles had melted away into nothing but waxy goo dripping down onto his plate, he blew them out and wished for everything he could ever hope to wish for in life too. B. Oh, I totally understand. It's totally racist, but if it is going to repair relations with you and your family, I'm totally for it. I'll see myself out. Oh my god, thought B. Total thought bubble. Sphinxy totally created an image of Mother in his mind and thought about doing better. It just took about 1,000 years, but it happened. and B went home feeling victorious. Total thought bubble. Oh yeah, that felt good. Is this where we're supposed to meet? Asked B as she sat down beside her husband. She watched as hundreds of thousands of people flooded into the arena. Everyone seemed so happy yet so confused by everything they saw. Some were dressed up while others looked like they didn't have much to wear, while still others wore masks on their faces, disguising themselves from everyone else. They all seemed eager to find some place that was safe, secure, and most importantly, somewhere they belonged, somewhere that made sense for them personally. Others walked slowly across the field carrying large pieces of furniture that appeared too big for any one person to carry alone. Tables, chairs, dressers, and more. Many carried items covered in cloth, which left no doubt as to what exactly these objects were. A few even dragged along hammocks, tents, or giant cushions, with several even bringing in whole trees or plants. Yes, said Mr. Peanut Butter. I think we're almost there. He pointed toward a corner of the Colosseum where a small group stood watching their progress intently. There were three individuals who all shared a similar appearance. White hair, thin builds, blue skin, long noses, ears, mouths, and eyes, and when Sphinx finally spotted them, he realized immediately who it must be. The aliens. These are them, the same beings he had met before. This is great! I knew I'd see them again. Or at least I hoped I would. Then he remembered something else. They had told him not to tell anyone about their existence. And then here he was talking about them non-stop to his friends. But hey, how bad could it be? And nothing really horrible happened after the first time we talked about them, so why should anything different happen now, right? Hey, wait up, called B. I don't know if this place has escalators or elevators, but can you please give me a hand up? Sphinxy. Why do people always say that? What? Asked B, looking back over her shoulder. She reached out for help and Sphinx grabbed hold of her arm. She looked into her husband's eyes. She smiled. Okay, thanks, she said. As she climbed aboard the moving platform, she thought to herself, I'm going to miss the days of getting my own way in life. The days where I never had to ask someone to help me with anything because I didn't need to. Except maybe to wipe my ass. Because from now on everything will have to be done together. At least until I figure out a way to become invisible like these guys. As they watched me climb onto the platform, they both laughed a bit and turned around only to find Sphinx staring blankly off in another direction. He hadn't heard a word they were saying. His mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about what he might do once he got home and discovered he couldn't even eat food. Without some alien man sitting beside him asking what flavor he liked best, or worse yet, he would run across a bunch of people all laughing about how much they enjoyed listening to an alien guy tell stories about things no one else knew or had ever seen before, which would lead them all to forget how miserable their lives had become after discovering how absolutely meaningless the world actually is. B. Okay, listen up. Time for you to take control. Remember who you are. I know who I am. I'm your dad. B. That's right. So here are the rules. You are not allowed to think anymore about anything related to aliens or aliens' ability to talk. You must focus exclusively on yourself and any problems you face within your own life. And if anyone asks about aliens or anything aliens related, you must simply pretend to be clueless by pretending that you can't remember a single thing. Is that clear? Yes. Yes. He nodded. But wait a second. Didn't we already discuss this? We decided that I wasn't going to lie to anybody. So why are we having this conversation again? B. Because I don't want us talking in front of everyone else, like at our next party, and I also don't want to have to go through explaining everything over and over and over. Can't we just assume people will figure out what happened on their own over time? Just like we did when it came to my memory loss and forgetting stuff from the past. Right? And since they will obviously come to understand that you've lost your memory due to the accident involving my head being blown off during sex with an alien guy named Sphinx, there's nothing more to worry about. Okay? Are you happy now? Yes. Yep, he sighed contentedly. Happy. Except for the fact that now I'll probably never find out how exactly I met those three aliens in the first place or where I could meet them again. B. No, no, no. That won't happen because you're not allowed to think of them anymore or even ask questions about them or anything else aliens related. This is important, so please pay attention. Be had gone ahead into the crowd without waiting for her husband's response. Now she found herself surrounded by a sea of humanity, which parted as she walked forward toward the stage. She was about halfway across when Mr. Peanut Butter ran up beside her and grabbed hold of her arm, halting her progress. Mr. B, I'm afraid I need to borrow your body for just one moment if you don't mind. Thank you very much. As soon as he had taken control of his wife, all of the humans in the surrounding area stopped in their tracks and began looking around themselves as if they were trying to determine if this strange phenomenon actually took place within the confines of reality itself. But only moments later, most people simply went back to whatever it was they were doing before, while some simply turned away entirely. Two can play that game. B said, not quite thought bubble, and not quite thought I'm feeling lucky. The button, and B pressed it again, hoping for the best. B watched Sphinx make his way through the crowds. It seemed like every person who spotted him asked the same question. Who's your friend? And although Sphinx knew exactly what would happen next, namely someone asking about aliens, he didn't know what else to say since these days, whenever anyone tried to talk about aliens, he simply answered, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Until finally someone would come to their senses and stop questioning him altogether. But today was different. Today he wanted to tell someone about those three beautiful beings whose faces appeared on television screens across the world not long ago. They are here, on Earth, just like us. Or maybe they aren't really like me at all. Be thought, I hope it goes well for Sphinxy. Oh, there's hope again. That's progress, I guess. And B winked into another world, hopefully her own. A trifecta of hope. Sphinx couldn't believe how crowded this place was and how loud everyone was. So many voices, so much energy. He stood out from everyone around him in his suit and tie, but still managed to blend in with the rest of the crowd by wearing a hat. Then suddenly a young woman stepped up beside him. A stunning blonde in a white dress carrying a tray of drinks. Her hair shimmered as she walked toward the stage, and the smile she gave Sphinx felt warm and inviting. He took one step closer and then 2 steps further before stopping when he realized he wasn't going anywhere because this whole thing seemed like some sort of dream, or perhaps even a nightmare. But why should either be any less real than reality itself? He wondered, so he moved forward again and found himself standing face to face with this lovely lady who now handed him his drink, which he promptly raised to his lips to take a sip, only to find that his hand was empty and that he had no memory whatsoever as to what happened to his drink. B, stop! Don't you dare take a single drop, Sphinx. That's it. Be thought bubble. If you think you're getting away with drinking that beer, you're mistaken. Okay. Thanks. I'm sorry. I'm new at all of this, and I'm not sure what's happening here. B. Yes, you are. You're trying to have an honest conversation about aliens. Something we both agreed on long ago. But instead of simply telling the truth, you decided to go out for beers first. So don't lie to me anymore about having lost your memory. If there is anything you want me to tell them on your behalf, please feel free to tell me. Okay, are we clear? Sphinx nodded. Yes, thanks. He smiled back, noticing a tiny patch of red near his left eye. Is my nose bleeding? B. No. It looks like something got stuck in it. Here, let me get a look. She leaned in close and stared into her husband's eyes while holding up the palm of her right hand and bringing it very slowly toward the bridge of Sphinx's nose as she spoke. B. Well, yeah, there it is. Looks like somebody ran over your head with their foot as they were running from an angry mob. Sphinx frowned as he tried to figure out why she was saying these things, since he'd never remembered anyone doing this to him before. And then B pulled him closer and kissed him deeply, but only until he could see those three aliens once more. And just then Mr. Peanut Butter stepped forward. Mr. P, hello, I'm Jellybean. My wife B's been asking for you. Where have you been hiding? She said you disappeared after I walked away during sex with some alien woman. Sphinx suddenly noticed that the blonde who had handed him his beer had turned around to face him again. He glanced down at himself to make sure that nothing had happened to his pants and shirt and realized that everything looked perfectly normal. So he moved forward to introduce himself when... B. Okay, getting too confusing. One emerald, press V, I'm feeling lucky, and then I'll try and sleep wherever I am. Okay. And now another kiss. This one longer. But Sphinx didn't want to kiss. Not yet. So he broke away from his wife's lips and stared hard into her eyes. S, you can't possibly think we're going anywhere. Not without talking about aliens. B, we're not. She pouted and folded her arms across her chest, refusing to budge an inch. She wore an expression on her face which seemed both hopeful and confused. Or maybe it was just tired, since she'd already been on duty for hours, even though Sphinx hadn't seen any evidence of it. But listen, if you really feel the need to talk about aliens, you should probably find someone else. Not my monkeys, not my circus. See ya. B runs away, leaving me standing here alone with these three beautiful women I've met only recently, but somehow know very well indeed. How did this happen? And why do I get the feeling I'm forgetting something very important? Something very important I'm supposed to remember? What is happening here? And then there was this old lady walking past him carrying 2 trays full of drinks that clinked against each other in a most musical manner. And that gave him such a funny feeling inside that he wanted nothing more than to take them out of her hands and give those people what they deserved, as long as it wasn't coffee or tea. And while he watched those trays make their way toward a table, he remembered how much fun it had been watching B serve those drinks, although all she ever served were beer. He smiled at the thought and wondered if she might be interested in trying her hand at mixing up some cocktails when suddenly another man stepped into his field of vision. Nan. So sorry, are you still looking for your friend? Or did you decide to go back home instead? He had heard Sphinx's name somewhere before, but couldn't quite place it until now. This must have been who Sphinx was looking for. Oh, yes, he's over by the bar. Just follow me. And Sphinx followed the stranger right off stage, whereupon he was immediately swept away by the crowd again. Or rather, he tried to escape from the crowd only to realize that there was nowhere left to run because the stage itself had vanished without warning and now everyone had simply turned around to. Face him, which made it hard to find a single direction in which to move forward, let alone find an exit which wouldn't result in being trampled upon. Sphinx found himself standing alone on a large empty platform with a red carpet running down the middle of it, leading to an open set of double doors at its far end. Man. Okay, here we are. The ballroom is this way. Come on, come on. And so Sphinx walked across the floor and opened one of the enormous double doors and entered the next room, only to discover that this was actually part of an endless hallway filled with identical rooms all lined up side by side. And as soon as he stepped through the door, all of these doors shut behind him except for two which stood directly opposite. B, much older, closed the book, her child sitting on her lap and ready for bed. What happens next? You'll find out. Now get onto bed. B kissed her child goodnight and set down a book, written by B, which was titled, How I Lost the Sphinx, Met Your Father, and Got Knocked Up with You, totally intentionally, and because we loved each other. Sure, B and her husband were trying to get divorced. That's why B wrote the book as a way of breaking it to the child, slowly. The end. Sphinx's Revenge by Charles Soule. The New York Times best-selling writer, DC Comics Swamp Thing returns to comics with this exciting tale about how magic can sometimes be used in very dark ways. There are those who would call him an evil man, but most people just think he's a jerk. He has been known to throw chairs into bars and once ran over a mother and child on his lawn. But mostly he spends his days meditating on what it means to truly be a sphinx, and waiting for the day when he will meet another sphinx again. For he is not alone, after all. And if you find yourself having trouble deciding which sphinx is the true one, B, on a break from work, quickly puts a book back on the shelf. Nope, no trouble at all, and walks away. The end. Period. The Secrets of Sphinx by Scott Oden, one of the world's foremost authorities on the supernatural and the occult, provides a fascinating new look at the legend of the Sphinx and the secrets behind her cryptic riddles and challenges that have haunted mankind since the beginning of time. A young woman wakes up with no memory. She knows only her name, B, and the fact that she works for a company called Sphinx, which somehow helps others communicate with beings beyond our universe. Her colleagues are friendly, but none more so than the mysterious Mr. Peanut Butter, whose presence both intrigues and frightens her. Then there's Jellybean, the strange little man with whom she seems to share an unusual connection.
Oh, shit. Nope.
But the key will only grant access to those who can see the world as it truly is, not through the veil of appearances, but rather through the lens of intuition, the true gift of seeing all things clearly, for that is how one discovers truth. Be an editor for Pharaoh, Strauss, and Jew laugh over the water cooler. Did you get a look at that manuscript that came by our office? Like hand-wrapped in duck time by a so-called occult scholar of other self-published things? Boss. Oh my god. Don't let me start. B. It is the worst of the worst book. You think it's gonna be campy, but it is so not. I have it right here. Boss. Let's burn it together. B. Yeah! And they do. In an appropriate manner, as co-workers, and no funny stuff. The end. Meaning leave it be, bro. The Curse of Sphinx by Charles Soule. The New York Times bestselling writer of DC Comics Swamp Thing returns to comics with this exciting tale about how magic can sometimes be used in very dark ways. There are those who would call him an evil man, but most people just think he's a jerk. He has been known to throw chairs into bars and once ran over a mother and child on his lawn. But mostly, he spends his days meditating on what it means to truly be a sphinx, and waiting for the day when he will meet another sphinx again. For he is not alone, after all. And if you find yourself having trouble deciding which sphinx is the true one, B did that before. Don't even try. Just walk away. Period. The end. That was the easy one. The art of living. B! A voice screamed from far off. The young woman tried her hardest to ignore the distant, faint cry, already trying to shut out the sound and its source of every trick she knew. She turned the corner and there it was, sitting there on a tiny, folding chair, staring up at her with a face too old and worn to be anyone else's, a face she had seen 100 times before but never failed to make her heart stop for a second each time. The Sphinx. The Sphinx leaned back in the hard metal chair and grinned slightly as Bee approached. Bee! Get busy dying. Bee ignored everything the Sphinx had to say. This note ended up on Yoko Ono's refrigerator, trapped forever, until the building got torn down. Dear John Lennon, I'm going to kill you someday. Love, Yoko. How I lost the Sphinx, make your father, and got knocked up with you totally intentionally and because we loved each other. She looked into the mirror and saw a pretty girl who couldn't sing and wasn't much of a dancer, and who liked boys but not enough to have sex with them. It seemed like such a waste of a good body. So why did everyone keep asking if they could see it? Why did people always want to touch it or lick it or stick their dicks inside it just because it was warm and soft?
Oh, God.
Get busy dying. Bee ignored everything the Sphinx had to say. This note ended up on Yoko Ono's refrigerator. get busy dying. He ignored everything the Sphinx had to say. This note ended up on Yoko Ono's refrigerator, trapped forever, until the building got torn down. And then someone stuck it in an archive somewhere, where some guy eventually found it. Read it, wrote me about it. Asked me why I didn't tell them I'd written it, and I thought about it. Then decided it was worth publishing because I told him it would sell more books than if I'd left it alone, and I said that I probably wouldn't care either way, and he offered me $500. I'm writing this part just so you can understand my feelings on this whole thing. Anyway, this is how you get published by accident. There is a hole in the middle of the road. No one can see the hole but you. You step toward the hole. Until you stop and step away from the hole. 'Cause you can choose. The end. Nice try. The best story ever told. A woman with short blonde hair stands near her bed in her apartment and tries to decide whether or not she should change into pajamas before she goes to sleep. She has no particular reason to hurry up and go to sleep. In fact, she's kind of enjoying hanging out for a little while longer before she finally turns out all the lights for good, but still she feels like it might be a better idea if she at least put on a pair of pants. Because if she doesn't wear something nice enough to sleep in, then what exactly is the point? So she opens her closet, reaches inside, grabs 2 pairs of jeans, and decides against wearing any sort of pants at all, even though she hasn't decided yet if she's going to have sex tonight or... That's silly. She has all that melatonin that she swallowed. Ready for bed. Night-night. The bike had been raining off and on for hours, and there was already a puddle forming under the bike where his tire had left a mark on the ground. A woman could see it when she gone and thought it was pretty funny because everyone always thought that bikes were supposed to ride in the middle of the road. And here she was getting splashed by every car that drove past as it went by because her bike was taking up space that someone else needed to use to drive down this lonely street where nothing ever happened. Especially not anything interesting. What are you doing? The boy jumped out from behind the tree he'd hidden himself behind and said, "What does it look like I'm doing?" Woman, answering questions with questions. Something toxic. See you, Sphinxy. The wind up. I don't understand, said B. She stood in front of a large white wall in a room full of people dressed like doctors or nurses. Everyone stared at a tiny black screen held up to their eyes by an armless robot man whose body was wrapped in tubes. It looked like something you would see on Star Trek. But these people seemed way more concerned than the ones on Star Trek. A man spoke to them through some kind of microphone, but they all kept looking back into the little box on the table instead of listening to him. He finally gave up and walked away, muttering something about the coffee machine being broken again. Do we really need all this equipment? Asked B. Yes.
Now, try that. Wait, was this blue lighter the whole time? Oh, wait, I could have sworn. No, too bad. We were doing blue lighter the whole time. I thought it was.
Okay, B said, not caring what happens next. The end. This is going to be fun.
Okay, that's big enough to end it. Wow, that was a slog. 4 hours. It's like Gandhi in here. This is me procrastinating again.